Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. This is the second video that I'm adding to this course 2 years later after finishing the course. So here I've got my running applet and I've applied the two fixes that I mentioned in the video that I added at the start of this section of the course. So the ball's bouncing the right way and it also works on the Mac. And in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to get this working as a desktop app. So this is a pretty good little challenge if you've been following along the tutorial and writing the code yourself and getting it to work. Then hopefully you should be able to figure out how to create a desktop app from this. But in case you can't, or in case you want to see an example of how you'd actually do that, I'm going to show you how to do it here. So let's quit this and go to Eclipse. And the first thing I'm going to do here is we're going to need a JFrame, or a class that extends JFrame. So I'm just going to add this to the existing code that includes the applet stuff, and then we'll be able to run it either as an applet or as a desktop program. So I'm going to right click and go to new class, and let's call this mainframe, and click finish. And I'm going to say that this extends JFrame. And I'm going to add firstly the import at the top with Control-Shift-O or Command-Shift-O on the Mac. And we're going to create a constructor here, so mainframe like this. And I'll call the version of the parent class constructor that takes a string parameter that's just the title that goes on the window. Let's call this animation demo. So this error, a lot of people have asked me about this, and this is just, you may know, it's just that if you extend a class that is serializable, or you make your class implement the serializable interface, then you get this warning, because this is just a thing so that if you want to save your objects to a file, you can have a version ID in there, which you can change if you create a new version of your program and you don't want people loading the new version of your object from a file containing the old version. So I cover serialization in my Java for Beginners, but for here I'm just going to add a generated serial version ID just to get rid of that warning, which is it's just nice not to see it really, although you don't really always have to worry about these warnings too much. Okay, so in the constructor, let's give this a size. Let's let's call set size and set that to 800 wide, 600 high. I'm going to set it to visible. We need to say set visible true to actually show the window. And I'm also going to say set default close operation. And this is just going to make it close when we click the cross in the corner of the window. Exit on close is a constant from JFrame. We don't have to say JFrame.exit on close because we're already within a JFrame subclass here. So that's just a really basic blank window. Now let's go to the project, right click and go to new class, and I'll create a class with a main method. I'll call this main. No, let's call it app. We've already got a main. And tick to say that we want the public static void main method. And in there I need to call swing utilities dot invoke later. So various people have asked me why we need to start a swing app this way. Why can't we just go ahead and create the JFrame? The best answer I can give is just that this is the recommended way of doing it. Maybe it causes problems if you've got a multi-threaded app if you don't do this or something like that. But this is the way Oracle recommends, so it's the way we should do it. This creates some kind of special thread that your swing app runs in. Now here we could say new runnable like this. Add in the brackets. This is an anonymous class. If I click the error, I can go to add unimplemented methods, and in here we can add our JFrame. We can create our JFrame just by saying new main frame. That's the way I've been showing you how to do it in these videos. But now if you're using Java 8, you can also use lambda expressions instead. and there's a video in those in my free Java for Beginners course. Let's check that this works first. So I'm going to right click app.java and go to run as Java application, and now we get a blank window here. So an alternative way, an alternative to anonymous classes like this, if you've got an anonymous class, just to implement an interface that only has one method, which are called functional interfaces in Java 8 terminology, you can do it with a lambda expression, and that would look like this. We'll have two round brackets and an arrow like that, and then a couple of brackets where we can put in some code. And in there we can just do the same thing, say new JFrame. So this is just equivalent syntax to what we had before, really, with the anonymous class. Sorry, new mainframe. It's just a bit more terse. And this is called just a simple example of what we call a lambda expression. It just allows you to create little anonymous functions that you can pass to other functions, to other methods. And you can also use these in the same way for handling button clicks, which is quite nice. That's just if you're using Java 8. So let's check it again. Go to run as Java application, and yeah, it looks like it's working. So now we can just copy some code into our main frame. So normally I would try to avoid copying code, but here we've clearly got some applet related code here, and we just need this in our alternative JFrame swing related desktop code. So here I am just going to copy this. Probably you wouldn't want the applet code and the swing code in the same Java application, but there's no harm in leaving this in here. You'll still be able to run it as a desktop app. So I'm just going to copy all this stuff at the top of the JApplet in main.java code. I'm going to copy all these variables over to mainframe. Let's paste them in here, and we'll go back to the main.java, the applet code, and copy all this stuff from init. We need all of that. Go back to mainframe.java, and I'm going to put that in the constructor before we make the window visible. So it looks like we have to do a little bit of work here. So let's just save that actually and see what it says. So now we need to get in this anonymous class here. We could use a lambda expression for that. I think this only has one interface, one method, this interface. But I'll leave it as it is. Let's just open that. Because yeah, so here we could use a lambda expression. We've got an interface with just one method. But equally, there's no harm leaving it like this. What we do need to change is it's now mainframe.this, not main.this, to get the this reference of the main frame. And here where we're creating a timer, I think this, yeah, the only thing we have to do here is our class here is going to have to implement action listener. Let's say implements action listener, so that we can create a method that is called by the timer. Let's click the error, the warning. Yeah, it's an error actually, and go to import action listener, click it again, and go to add on implemented methods. And now we get this, which is going to be called every time the timer runs. So I'll go back to main.java, and we can see that previously we called game.update, and the action performed for our timer. So now we need to do the same thing, just paste that in here. The other thing is we need to start our timer. In the original applet code, we've got this code that calls timer.start when the applet is started, and calls timer.stop when the applet stops, when it goes into the background or whatever. That's not really relevant to a swing app. We just want it to start running and carry on running, really, probably. So let's go to mainframe.java. And somewhere in here, before we show the window, it doesn't really matter actually, we'll call timer.start. Now if we right click it and go to run as Java application instead of applet, hopefully we'll see the same thing. So here it is, and now it's running as a desktop app, and we click this and it works just as before. Okay, so you can apply these animation techniques to swing desktop apps just like this. And that is most often where you're probably going to want to use them, especially since it kind of looks like applets might be on their way out, to be honest, with Chrome not supporting them. But people I'm sure are still going to be using it for some time, just within companies where, as I said in the video at the start of the course, you can control what browser people use, and you can control the security settings of the browser. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Until next time, happy coding.